Hi, everybody. Barbara Monconi Smith here. Today, we are talking about mental health and coping mechanism. Today I'm going live from my own page. So, if you guys are um, new to the page, just say hi. If you're there, if you've worked with me before, just say hi as well. So, just to let me know that you're there and you're watching. Um, so, Today, I wanted to talk about mental health because it's needed. Because I haven't really talked about it much, but I I created a whole program called Soul Circle to address emotional toxicity. That is a contributing factor, of course, to coping mechanism um, and destructive coping mechanism. So, hi, Joanne. Good to see you. Yeah. So, you guys, before we get in, say hi so I know you're there. If you have any questions, if you have any experience that you want me to read out loud, please do so because, as always, hi, Lori. Hi, Elizabeth. Good to see you guys coming in. So today I want to talk about mental health because there's, as you probably already know, there's a huge stigma around it, and there's also a very much a big line of demarcation between what is considered clinical mental illness and so and basically episodes of depression or hi Shelly, good to see you. So I see you put the reminder on. Good. Um, so as I said, a lot of you have worked with me, and so it's so good to see you guys. And for those of you who will be watching this in a replay, you may not have worked with me before, but I am Barbara Makuni Smith, and I am the founder of the Medical Medium Detox Support Group. Today, I'm talking to you guys from my own page, the Barbara Makuni Smith, because this conversation goes above and beyond the medical medium. Although a lot of you that I work with, of course, within the medical medium world, can possibly relate or feel touched by the conversation we're going to have today. This conversation is open to everybody. This is not just a conversation for someone who have been diagnosed, so to speak, with any type of mental illness. This is in fact a conversation even more so for those of you who are struggling and do not know how to address some of the changes that they feel inside, of some of the discomfort that they feel inside, and due to fear of isolation, fear of being casted out, fear of losing their jobs, you'll be amazed how many clients I have, specifically specifically in the military, active duty or retired, that do suffer with mental illness and do not report it or do not seek help because of fear of this being recorded. Put on the records, and so that being used disadvantageously. Becoming a disadvantage for their career going forward. So whether we have been diagnosed or not, I can promise you that each one of us has experienced at some point a sense of anxiety, depression, OCD, eating disorder. I mean, eating disorder now there's a new term called orthorexia, and I unfortunately see it becoming more and more frequent, especially within our community. People that become so obsessed with being healthy and eating healthy that it gets all the way to a eating disorder. So again, mental illness takes different shapes and form, but today we're discussing not just the mental illness, but we're discussing the coping mechanism, and we're discussing what can we actually do. But I also wanted to really lift a veil from the whole concept of clinical diagnosis and illness per se versus what is actually a consequences of other things that are happening in our body or experiences that we may have, trauma, for instance, abuse that we may have experienced, and then what we collect under mental illness like anxiety, depression, as I said, OCD, bipolar disorder, orthorexia, eating disorders, addictions, and then they become a coping mechanism of, again, situations that we've been exposed to or situation we've been dealing with. So today, not many of you may know that depression is the leading cause of disability in the world, not just in the US, but in the world. That means that we all are subjected to it and we all can be affected by it. In the US alone, 10% of adults struggle with depression, but these are just the reported cases. It's my belief that the issue is much bigger. How do I know that? Because I work with you guys, and I have the pleasure and the honor to work with a lot of you. And I have to say that maybe 8 out of 10 of you do report, once we establish a personal and trust relationship, do report some case of what would be considered a mental illness. But again, I'm here to demystify the fact that is an illness in itself. It is a consequences of other illnesses probably. It is a silent pandemic, and pandemic because the culprit, and then we're going to go in depth into understanding what could be the culprit of so much widespread anxiety disorders, depressions, panic attacks, obsessive compulsive disorders, eating disorders, and whatnot. What are the culprits? But they're so widespread, and I call it silent because I still believe that still today, not many talk about it, for fear of being labeled, for fear of being outcast, for fear of losing their jobs, being judged. And so, if we're not talking about it, then it's something that stays inside, right? And if you have worked with me or if you've heard me talking, if it stays in, it's not going to be up. It's going to be up to no good. So it's better for it to come out. So in the traditional medical community, they talk about mental illness as some kind of genetic disorder with the underlying attribute of being born this way or being born faulty or sick. But as I said, the truth is that these conditions can apply to anybody at any point, and anybody at any point can experience mental disorders for a limited time, or and if untreated, could be for a lifetime. But the reason why I'm doing this talk is to start talking about it more, to share my experience that I've had with many of you and my personal experience as to what this conversation about mental illness really is about, and to remove the stigmas, and also from a physiological perspective, to understand a little bit more from the position of a clinician, so to speak, that works on the field with many of you, as to what really happens in the body when we feel that we're experiencing whatever level of mental illness. So first of all, let's talk about depression. And again, you guys, I want you to come in and to let me know that you're watching, that you're seeing me, because I'm following here my little Word document so that I stay on point and I don't lose my train of thought. But please, I see your comments there, so please say hi, ask questions. So many are coming in. Hi Shannon, hi Lauren, hi Jen. And some of you have worked with me, so you know that we've talked about individually about this. And the fact that whether you've been diagnosed or not, and most likely most of you have not been diagnosed, you are experiencing currently, or you have experienced some level of mental illness disorder. And again, please hear me when I say that when I use the word illness, it's to just kind of relate to what is the common consensus, but in no way I believe that is an illness, especially not in the way that it labels people. So I want to make sure that we understand that I speak for experience and for my clinical experience, that anybody can be experiencing any level, from mild to more substantial level of mental disorder for a limited time or for a longer period of time. So, hi guys, I see you coming in. It's so good to have you here. So again, as you come in, if you have questions after you say hi, please, I will be happy to answer them at the end, or any reference that you may need, I will put them in the comments at the end of this. So what does mental disorder looks like, though? We see some physical changes, because that's another thing that we need to discuss. The fact that mental disorders are so intangible, so to speak, that sometimes it's really hard to pinpoint really who is really struggling, and even for ourselves, if we are struggling, because it can take different forms to really become serious about looking for help. Sometimes we don't even know that that's what we're dealing with. So low mood, of course, is a very common physical change that we start to experience. Loss of interest in things and activities that we used to engage with before. Changes in appetite, and that's very common, and it could be both way. It could be in the binging category. It could also be in the anorexic sort of category. But again, we don't have to get to the extreme to feel that we belong, that we are actually experiencing some mental disorders. It's like autism. It's a spectrum. And the same, I would say, I would to the extent of saying that is true for mental illness. So the spectrum means that there's different degrees, and someone that is suicidal, it is maybe an extreme of the spectrum, but someone that starts to experiencing like changes in appetite, or poor concentration, or poor lack of sleep, or feeling guilty often, feeling worthless. So it doesn't go all the way to recurrent thoughts of suicide, but still experiencing some changes. Now, there are different reasons. Now, when we experience though this kind of mood changes, or mental changes and disorders, something really happens in our body. On a chemical level, it does change the chemistry of the body. So the common consensus is that it's a mental illness, must be here, right? It's either in your mind, as if we separate the mind from the body, or like two different entities, but it's nothing that you can do about it physically. And again, because it's a spectrum, you can have someone that is has severe bipolar disorder, severe mood swings that nowadays is just treated with medication and lithium, for instance. Or you can have someone that is feeling really low and really bad about themselves and has a very low self-esteem. So this don't necessarily get classified as a mental illness, but in my book, I feel they are part of the same experience, just a different degree. So it's a different spectrum. So physical changes we talked about, they do happen when we feel this way. And we can look at the smaller frontal lobes and hippocampal volumes. In fact, they shrink when we are experiencing this level of chemical changes in our body. We also observe an abnormal depletion of certain neurotransmitters, such as serotonin, norepinephrine, and dopamine. And very often, and I know that that's when you guys are going to raise your hands because I work with you, hormones are abnormality, such as low cortisol and deregulation of thyroid hormones. So we experience that. Now, the medical community, especially the neuroscientists and neurologists, they tend to think that you, me, whoever experienced this type of symptoms have a genetic disorder, and those are the markers that they look for. Now, my approach is different. If you do have hormones abnormality, cortisol, serotonin, dopamine, those are, if you have, a lack or depletion of these hormones, those are conducive for you to experience this kind of symptoms. So guess where your neurotransmitters, most of your neurotransmitters are produced? They are produced in your adrenals. So in this community, the whole adrenal depletion, adrenal fatigue, it's very common. And now in functional medicine, it's becoming more and more of a kind of go-to. So if we start to understand that adrenal depletion is a problem and is happening, whether we have instruments to diagnose it or not, we also have to accept that the depletion of the hormones that the adrenals produce, right, such as the neurotransmitters, and the pandemic of thyroid issues, whether it's hypothyroidism or hyperthyroidism, can then lead to this type of mental disorders. But you see, even the word, I can't even say it because it's not necessarily I don't mean it necessarily in the way that the doctor will diagnose you. So if you have hypothyroidism, you can experience low mood and loss of interest and changing your appetites. You can experience poor concentration or lack of sleep. all of it. Now, nobody will ever diagnose you with a mental illness, but the truth is, it's the same thing. So I call it being in a spectrum, and I said at the very beginning, if you're joining now, that anybody can experience this in any point in their life for multiple times, or just for a limited time, or for a lifetime if it goes untreated. Now, treatment for me, obviously, if you have worked with me, it's not in the heavy drugs and medication, but there is treatment and there's a way to address this. But first and foremost, we have to understand what that is, what happens in our body, and the fact that everybody can be affected by it. And the thing that I see the most is the isolation, because we live in this false illusion that what is happening to us is happening only to us. And because this is not something that we really talk about, like, the low mood, the low sex drive. We don't talk about this stuff. So then you go out with friends, and maybe if you do talk about sex, for instance, in your with your partner, it's always like, oh yes, of course we do it. But the truth is that I see clients that haven't had sex for years. And that is a symptom, of course. This is not the disease, but it's a symptom. And that could might very well be due to the fact that your thyroid is deregulated, that your adrenals are excessively depleted. But I see a lot of this happening more and more now with the younger generation. I have very young clients. I have 7-year-olds and 8-year-olds clients that are experiencing some level within the spectrum, right, of what the medical community will define as mental disorder. But and they're very young and they're experiencing this. You guys have heard me talking about immunization, and I'm very vocal about it. I'm going to do a whole seminar on the flu shot on November 1st. So I would be remiss if I didn't say that a lot of the mental disorders that I'm experiencing, again, non-diagnosed, we're not talking about a clinical diagnosis, but I'm talking about me working with you and seeing people telling me that they never really felt happy. They always felt, since they were 4 years old, like sad for no reason. And a lot of the connections that we then make bring the beginning of this disorder, or patterns, cluster of disorders, to a heavy immunization. So heavy immunization within the medical media world means heavy metal toxicity. And in susceptible people, heavy metal toxicity can absolutely alter the cognitive function in your brain, and can absolutely alter the production of the neurotransmitters that we need, that we talked about at the beginning, the dopamine, the norepinephrine, the serotonin, that are the good hormones, the one that make us feel good. So when we have heavy metal toxicity and hence heavy metal damage, this can cause changes in our brain. You remember when I said we observe a shrinking of the frontal lobes and the hippocampal. So this actually happens. So as I said, it's not just in your mind, it's not just like, I don't feel well. It's actually changing the chemistry and even the shape at times of your body. So heavy metal toxicity, I would say, is a main culprit. And I see it more and more younger generation, as I said, because the younger generation versus us, versus our parents and our grandparents, they come already loaded into this world with a lot of inherited heavy metal load, plus the exposure to the toxins that they are currently exposed, and maybe we were not 40 years ago, and our parents were not 70 years ago, and our grandparents were not 100 years ago, thus create a cumulative effect. So our children, hi Judy, good to see you, hi Leia. So our children are currently now already coming out of the womb exposed not to just the inherited load that we take from our parents, but to just going out of the hospital and starting to breathe. We of course have more toxicity we're exposed to, and then there's the immunization part that. In the US specifically, it is really, really intense, especially at a young age, and so that all contributes to create a higher toxic load, specifically heavy metal loads, that then can lead to the depletion of the neurotransmitters that we need to feel happy. So I know here there's some of you who, as mentioned to me, I felt, always said, as early as I can remember, you know, a 4 or 5, I felt that I wasn't necessarily happy. So this is because, in my opinion, and we discussed it together, there's been a heavy metal toxicity damage, heavy metal damage, and this, if it's not treated, will just continue to build up, right? Build up over time, and the oxidative process will continue. And so we will be depleted with the much needed hormones that we need to, have energy, have interest, have a good solid sleep, regenerate, detoxify, and all that. Um, as I said, as I said, Anthony Williams talks about EBV feeding off of a large amount of toxic heavy metal in our system, and so this when the EBV eats off of these heavy metals, it creates a neurotoxic waste that saturates the brain and then creates a corrosive action, and that brings to the depletion of the much needed hormones that we were saying, right? The neurotransmitters that, if you've joined now, remember, are produced in your adrenals. So when Anthony says that we really have to take care of our adrenals as if we're protecting Fort Knox, is absolutely right, because they are very little small glands, but they are so powerful. And again, adrenals and thyroid always very connected, and you guys can say, hey, this is true, this is me, please give me a sign that you're following, and that this is resonating with you. Very often we experience a depletion in thyroid hormones contingently to a weaker adrenals, or vice versa. Anthony as well mentions the fact that if the adrenals and the thyroid have a kind of supportive relationship, so if one of the glands is weak, the other one will subside for a short period of time until it gets depleted as well. So if the thyroid is weak because maybe of a lot of viral activities in it, then is not able to produce enough hormones, then the adrenals will support. But vice versa, when the adrenals are depleted, the thyroid will support the adrenals. But this is supposed to be a plan B, a C, and D for the body. When it becomes chronic because it goes untreated, then it's when we get in serious problems, right? So when we talk about mental illness, or let's call it, I would say, heavy metal damage, we see a lot of a big spectrum. As I said, depression is one, and maybe some of you may have experienced multiple times, whether it's multiple times or just isolated situations of true depression. Other times could be anxiety and panic attack and panic disorders. Other times could be obsessive compulsive disorders, where we start having obsessive compulsive thoughts, where we feel that unless we do things a certain way, or they are, the knob is turned a certain way, something bad is going to happen to us. Or a constant sense of impending doom, whether it's for us or for us or for the people that we love, like our children or our family members, and we constantly scared or in fear that something bad is going to happen to them. Those are part of the spectrum. Another thing that we need to talk about is PTSD. When we hear the term PTSD, also known as post-traumatic stress disorder, we think about war veterans and survivors of traumatic events like Auschwitz, like concentration camps, or accidents or whatnot. So what happens is that our body goes into an imminent danger and triggers the fight or flight response. So our body floods our adrenals flood the body with adrenaline, so we can be active, alert, and respond promptly to the threat. But once the threat passes, we can experience an emotional aftershock. And this is the classic form of a PTSD recognized by the therapists and the psychiatrists. So that's why we see a lot of veterans that suffer from it. But the truth is that what I'm witnessing and what I know you guys have felt on your own is that we're all victim at some level of hidden PTSD. The true definition involves lingering negative feelings that can result from any adverse experience. Depending on how we approach life, getting fired could cause a PTSD in some people. My dog, more than one, my dog bit a person, and I was there. He did it to protect me. However, that left me scarred, so I do have PTSD due to that event with this specific situation. We also my family and I went through one of the most devastating California fires. So obviously I have PTSD for that as well. So we don't have to be in a war. We don't have to be, going through major, I think maybe the fires will constitute a major event, but, we don't have to do necessarily, a breakup could be something that will produce those lingering negative feelings and will give us a sense of a very bad breakup can give us a sense of a lack of self-worthiness, could give us a sense of guilt, meaning we bring it upon ourselves to believe that the events were caused by us or our inability to prevent this kind of events. Losing a job can create a PTSD. The inability to feel accepted and seen can be causing a PTSD from things that we maybe have experienced early on in childhood. So childhood trauma can be bringing nowadays as an adult, situations of PTSD. And again, by that, I don't just mean sexual abuse, physical abuse, and neglect, which of course are very valid and real. I'm talking about some of you telling me that one of the earliest memories were them crying in the crib because the mom or the father wasn't tending to them and feeling abandoned. Now, I always said, like, my daughter then is already messed up if that's the case, because yes, we have left her in the crib to soothe herself to sleep at times when we thought it was necessary. But so again, it doesn't have to be abuse and neglect in the physical form or on the harshest form. It could be however you perceive that experience. So if that experience left you lingering feelings, lingering negative feelings, you may still be paying, the consequences of that event from, early childhood. So really, there's no limitations to what can cause a PTSD. A lot of eating disorders that I see nowadays stem from PTSD. Why? Because a lot of you are in this world of the medical medium or in, plant-based or alternative nutrition because of chronic illness. So when we start feeling heal and we want to get better and we see that we don't find any answers, then we realize that maybe the way we use food could actually turn on and off some of the symptoms that we're feeling. Of course, then we become, the first I would say you consider your chronic illness the trauma, and then once you start seeing that by removing certain food categories, you actually start reducing inflammations. When you start having more juices, you actually start feeling better and have more energies, your mood changes. Then that alone can cause an eating disorder. Why? Because for fear of going back in the event, which is the chronic illness or the multiple symptoms that brought you to, seek for help, the fear of going back to that situation keeps you, though, crippled in a situation where you can no longer move from that, whatever it is that you just found, whether it's plant-based, whether it's different cleanses, juicing, and you name it. So then we experience the orthorexia that now it is recognized as an actual full-blown disorder. And orthorexia is nothing else but people becoming so obsessed about getting healthy and stay healthy that then their normal functions of life, social life, and whatnot, become impeded. So people don't travel anymore, they don't go out for dinner, they become isolated, they don't have a social life. Then it becomes a disorder because it comes with a host of other issues that that we're not free anymore. There's no balance. And again, remember what I always say: when there's no balance, there cannot be health. So I don't care how healthy you eat or you think you're eating. When there's no balance inside, there cannot be health. One thing that I wanted to say is that There are things, of course, that can, whenever we experience any sort of heavy metal toxicity and damage, there are things that we can do to turn the clock back. I have a lot of moms telling me if I knew better when I over vaccinated my child or just vaccinated my child, if I knew better, I wouldn't do certain things. Like I wouldn't vaccinate the children. I wouldn't. I have people, I have grandmothers telling me, I've been having flu shots every year for so many, and now they're experiencing dementia, Alzheimer's. But I promise you that in this body that is already compromised, especially the flu shot, is totally unnecessary and just adding on to the cumulative effect of the heavy metal toxicity and damage. So if you guys want to know more about the whole immunization and flu shot, please join me on November 1st on our seminar. I will have a guest there with me, Sila Wadcock, that is a very, very prominent homeopath that does a lot of homeoprophylaxis and it's really outspoken about natural immunization. So we'll talk about that because I know that especially flu shot is becoming a hot topic now because a lot of first of all, because they want to immunize us all, right? And they start with the flu shot, making us believe that if we do take it, then, eventually if we do catch a COVID, the symptoms will be lessened, but that couldn't be further from the truth. And I speak by experience based on what I've seen. But beside that, Kathy's saying, hi Kathy there. Kathy's saying her PTSD and EBV started when I experienced trauma. Perfect. I love that you just said this, Kathy, because so Anthony and people that follow Anthony William are really big on the EBV and the viral component of chronic illness, which is absolutely a great element that Anthony has brought to the forefront for people and even doctors and practitioners to become more aware of, to start looking at some things. You can't believe, you won't believe how many people now see that they have a reactivated chronic EBV. And doctors, but the truth is, even if that happens, then the response of the medical community is to put you on some kind of antiviral and antibiotics to see for a long period of time. I just had a client that I asked her to do the test. She came back positive for a chronic reactivation of EBV, and the response of her doctor was to be 1 year, not 1 month, not 1 week, 1 year on antivirals. And I'm not talking about cat's claw and lysine. So there's a lot of misconception, a lot of confusion out there, but Kathy is bringing up the point of PTSD, panic attacks, and EBV started when I experienced trauma. So why is that? Now, EBV and a lot of the herpetic viruses that Anthony talks about are widespread, omnipresent. Everybody has them, different strain, different load, different kind. But we all have them, especially EBV. I mean, I haven't yet to meet someone that has no EBV, not even on an IgG level, IgG being the antibodies that we look for. There's IgM and IgG. So there's IgM that shows us a current infection, meaning right now the body is infected, and then IgG is something that shows a progressive, like a past infection. Anthony tells us it doesn't really matter. Even if it shows like a past infection, the EBV is still active and lurking in body, in organs and whatnot. However, not everybody is experiencing the same symptoms, right? And I'm sure you can see this. Kathy is having panic attack, PTSD, and EBV, possibly reactivation. Once she experienced trauma, her husband might be maybe totally fine. Why? Because he doesn't have EBV? That's not the case. The truth is that viruses alone are not enough for us to experience the chronic illnesses, the reactivations, to experience, in Kathy's case, reactivation of EBV. There has to be something else. First and foremost is the trigger, meaning what is feeding these viruses. So the viral activities, like Anthony also admits, has to be fed. So heavy metals is one of the biggest offender, right? So heavy metals feed the viruses and not just the EBV. And now we're studying what's happening with the COVID. But anyway, heavy metals. Toxicity in terms of what we breathe, the pesticide. Today I just had a client from Brazil who was treated with DDT when she was little to treat lice in the hair. When kids go to school and they have a case of the word, I can't think of the word right now, but I think it's lice. lysis, I think, in the hair. So it was treated with DDT, sprayed in the hair, wrapped with a cloth, and slept on it overnight. And that happened multiple times to multiple children, and that was the way it was. I remember my grandmother in Italy spraying DDT in the yard, for to get the pest out of there. Out of our plants, and we will love the smell of the DDT. Actually, we liked it as a kid. So, I mean, there are the triggers that feed the virus. Feeding means that then the virus feeds on it, overpopulates, and then it takes over. Our immune system is able, it was designed, yes, lies, thank you, Shelley. It was designed to coexist with viruses. The moment the viruses take over, it's because there's an imbalance, right? It's because there is an imbalance. And there is an imbalance. Why? In the case of Kathy, for instance, when there's a trauma, what happens when there's a trauma? We get onto a fight or flight mode, right? It means our adrenals are going to start firing the adrenaline, are going to start firing cortisol. They're going to start firing all the epinephrine, all the neurotransmitters, and the corticosteroids to help us go through that trauma, right? However, whether the trauma becomes an isolated event and then we have to deal with the aftermath of the trauma, because as Anthony says, after we experience whatever trauma, even if it's isolated, then we have this lingering kind of depletion, because like your adrenals, and maybe you were already depleted, just gave it all. And so then we're experiencing the reduction or depletion of those very important hormones that we need to feel good, that we need not to experience what is associated today with mental illness. But as I said, the low libido, the low mood, the recurrent OCD, compulsive thoughts and sense of impending dooms. We need these hormones. But when our adrenals, for instance, are depleted, and why? Because Kathy experienced a trauma. What happens? And by the way, this hormones that the adrenals produce to get us over this situation are toxic in themselves. So when we produce them, then they are flawed in the blood, right? They don't just damage the adrenals because now the adrenals are depleted. They also add toxicity to our body. So the body has to filter out these toxic hormones. And again, you know me, I'm big on this. If your elimination pathways are not working properly, these hormones will stay in it. And what happens? That Kathy's EBV is going to feed off of these toxic hormones, because EBV loves this kind of hormones. So feeds it off and overpopulates and takes over, because at that time, if it takes over, it's because your lymphatic system specifically, it's clogged and is stagnant. So toxins are not able to be eliminated. But guess what's in the lymphatic system? Your immune system, the T cells. So what happens is that the virus takes over, because now all of a sudden it has a lot of food available, overpopulates, and your immune system is not up to par, because it's already probably coming from a traumatic situation where as suppressed the immune system. But make no mistake, with Anthony, I'm known as the lady of the lymphatic cleanse. But as you know, I do a lot of other things. Most of you know, at least. But if you don't know me and you're just listening to me for the first time, please go on BarbaraMancuniSmith.com and see everything that I offer. Because again, I'm happy that lymphatic cleanse took a life on his own. But why? Because it's much needed. But again, I offer a lot of other things. But so if the lymphatic system is congested, toxicity doesn't go out. And by toxicity, I mean all these hormones that the adrenals are producing to get us through trauma, for instance. And then we don't just remain with depleted adrenals. We also end up with a lot of good food for these viruses that we harbor, that we're designed to harbor. That's a normal, a very smart in a way in which we were designed. However, everything works when we have a strong immune system. So when your lymphatic system is congested, you might as well say that your immune system is congested or impaired. So all of a sudden, you have all these hormones, toxic hormones that we needed to get through the hump or the trauma. The virus is feeding off of it because the immune system is depleted, right? The immune system equals lymphatic system. So the immune system is depleted, and the virus has no defense. I mean, there's no defense coming to attack the virus. So that's why when you experience trauma, you end up with And in Kathy's case, it's PTSD and panic attacks. In other people, it's called breast cancer. All of my breast cancer patients, I also always ask them, what happened? Nobody ever says to me, well, I was, I don't know, eating too much McDonald's. It's never that. Everybody can always pinpoint to the specific major trauma or event that occurred. My sister died. I got divorced. I mean, a major traumatic life event that has changed the composition of your body. And that is the culprit of not just chronic illnesses or major, life-threatening diagnosis, but is also the culprit of what we call today mental illnesses. Now, today though, I didn't just want to talk about the reason behind the mental illness, which the good news is if we understand what's behind it, we can do something about it. And I don't just mean just coping with it. I mean effectively resolve it. I give you a prime example. In my lymphatic cleanse level 2, I have a person that was doing Soul Circle with me. She was doing Soul Circle, a month ago or so. And Soul Circle, for those of you who are not familiar with it, is my emotional and kind of a psychological support group that we do to eliminate emotional toxicity. And some of you are or have been part of it. Now, during the Soul Circle, a lot of stuff came up, of course, and she wasn't doing well. She was very depressed to the point that we were borderline concerned about her. And she reached out to one of the people within the group, and she was expressing, she also reached out to me saying how she was feeling. And now, depression is something that she's kind of been doubling with for a while or for a long time. Now, fast forward a month, 2 months later, she's completing the level 2 of the lymphatic cleanse. This girl, she is, completely changed. Her mood is so much better. She's happy, she's bubbly. She cannot believe it herself. I will post some of her things because I think they're inspirational for everybody. But for us who have known her 2 months ago in the kind of situation, a mental situation that she was in, and witnessing her right now, just addressing few things from a nutritional perspective, of course, but also that proves that there's hope for all of you. Again, I don't care what part of the spectrum are you, whether you felt sad or depressed since you were 4, or whether you had a sudden trauma that kind of brought PTSD on, whether you just had a baby and you're dealing with postpartum depression. I promise you that all of this can be reversed once we understand two things. One, where this is coming from. Like, you weren't born sick. You weren't born faulty. Something happened to your brain. And even the 4-year-old lady, I told her right away. It was maybe 10 minutes in our conversation, the first one-on-one, and I said, it sounds to me like heavy metal toxicity due possibly a 4 beside an inherited toxicity load is of course due to immunization. And I see this all the time. I see this with kids, children of clients who were in states like New York, for instance, that imposed the mandatory vaccination for children to attend school, like California. And so they decided to opt for not moving out of state and continue to send their kids to school. But that required them to bring their kids up to par with the vaccination schedule. So these children, 12-year-old, let's say, that were perfectly fine, allergy-free, no mood is bubbling. They got 5 or 6 shots before September to be that was last year, to continue to go to school. And I kid you not, it's not even been 2 months where the parents, because the parents see this right away, the parents noticed right away a change, first of all, in the eye. It's immediate. The change in the eye, it's like a light was turned off. And then some obsessive compulsive disorders start to arise. And then kids that feel that they want to sleep with the light on, the blanket has to be a certain way, it cannot be another way, but that never occurred before. Sudden allergies that come up, and the child was never allergic to anything before. So I tell you that because I see the proofs, and I have as I said, the honor and and the pleasure to be working with you. So, but be on this side, I see a lot of things happening. I hear a lot of experiences, and so I am the one that can take funnel all this experience and then chew them, elaborate them, and bring them back to you with this is what I'm finding. So heavy metal toxicity, of course, is one. Trauma and inherited pexis, absolutely. The viral load, as I said, I hope this message came through, which is I don't want to be worried about the viruses, because that then grants another worries, which is the current virus. I don't want you to be worried about viruses. And if you are interested, I see someone here saying I'm really interested in the flu shot. So Cleora is saying, I want to know more about the flu shot. My doctor is urging me to get it because I have a horrible immune system. I don't think I should. Well, Cleora, I will never be able to tell you what to do. That is not my position. But I want to empower you with the information so that you can make an informed decision and decide for yourself. I don't want you to say, my doctor made me do it, Barbara made me do it. I want you to get all the information and feel confident and then say, I should do it or I should not do it. So I invite you to go to my website, barbaramanconi-smith.com, and sign up. We're opening registration tomorrow, but sign up for my November 1st seminar about the flu shot and immunization so that you can get the information and then you decide what to do, if this is something that you want to consider or not. But I need you to have all the information, and all the information are definitely not going to come from the traditional medical community. I don't even know how long this group will stay up. So the other part is, as I said, nobody is immune for any little level of, so to speak, so-called mental illness, right? We all feel it. We all feel depressed. We all feel, and again, there are different levels because there's a different level of toxicity and a different level in which the body deals with it. Because as I always say, we are composed of 300 trillion cells, but also 300 trillion events and experiences. And so Kathy's trauma is not my trauma. And Shelley's traumas are not Kathy's trauma. And there's a different level, and the ability of Shelley to eliminate toxicity is different than Kathy's ability to eliminate toxicity. So as I said, when we experience hard emotions, trauma, abuse, neglect, but as I said, it's very personal, right? For someone could be sexual abuse, for someone could be, being left in a crib crying, for 30 minutes. It doesn't matter. There's no judgment there, and there's no sense of, the truth is that's how we, as we're designed, that's how we perceive it and we experience it. So whenever we experience trauma or whatever level that is, there is an actual chemical reaction in the body, and that chemical reaction is needed because it's what got people through the concentration camps alive. It's what got people through war zones and still being able to have a life and function afterwards. However, as we know, and I have a lot of clients who are in active duty military, the situation is very grim because the aftermath of these traumas, however extended they are, never gets addressed. And as I said, if you feel low, if you feel that you lost interest for a lot of things, most of the times you have bad sleeping habits. And again, lack of sleep is one of the major toxicity that we can add to our body. So we don't necessarily reach for help, and we don't necessarily address this as a mental disorder. We feel that something that we should just man up or woman up and just keep going. And rarely when I talk with you guys, I have to almost pull this stuff because you guys come to me for adrenal issues, for thyroid issues, for cancer, for MS, for all different sorts of, but nobody comes to me saying, hey, I'm feeling really depressed. Hey, I don't want to have sex with my husband. Hey, nobody. I mean, obviously this comes then eventually with the probing and poking of questions that I ask you, but because it's not the first thing that you want to share. For a lot of reasons, some even good reasons, because when you have the chance to communicate with and connect with someone, you don't just go out with your friends and say, oh my God, I'm a mess. This is how I feel. But the problem is that by withholding this information from each other, we are unknowingly doing a disservice to one another, because then we live in our little isolated world feeling that we're the only one feeling this way. And the truth is, or that there's some people like them, not us, some people diagnosed clinically with some disorders because maybe they went untreated for too long. And so the sense of impending doom got to a point where maybe they attempt suicide, and there's over 1 million suicide almost in the world, almost one every 40 seconds, and it's traumatic. And again, I have experience with people who are questioning their gender and their sexuality and transgender. That I'm really big into that, and with my husband, we're looking into possible putting together a book with some different interviews with people. But and this is separate, not because it touches me personally, but because I've worked with kids enough to know that this is also a silent epidemic, and we need to start talking about it more. But so even in that case, when you're just questioning and not understanding what is happening to your body, why you feel a certain way, why you feel attracted for a gender versus another, why you don't feel to be confined within certain parameter of what sexuality and gender stereotypes are, then we experience the isolation, right? And then we feel that we're the only one feeling this way. And then what happens is that this continues to linger. We on the surface appear to be normal. We still take our kids to school. We hold a job if we can, until we can no longer, and until and again, isolation kills more than any chronic illness combined. And the other way is true. People who even experience chronic illness, if they are within a community, within a family situation, and they feel supported and loved, they can overcome illnesses and they can live definitely longer. Even the simple addition of a pet in your house can make a difference in your outcome and outlook, what could be your current diagnosis or current situation. So one of the reasons why I wanted to come here today and talk about it is because through my soul circle, which it's nothing really to do with nutrition, at least not on the plate, or with the medical medium per se, but it was designed by me when I realized that more and more people were experiencing some of the things I was experiencing, and made me feel, oh, okay, understood and more normal, because there's also the sense of acceptance and normality. What is normality? I mean, it's for sure not what's portrayed by the media, right? Otherwise, normal would be just someone that is a size 2, looks a certain way, has a certain chest size. Like, this is not normality. That's not normal. But we are predisposed and programmed to feel that in order to belong, we need to be accepted and we need to be normal. And again, what is this sense of normality is to be defined. So that makes us, sorry, my computer is falling, and that makes us feel isolated, and that makes us do what I was saying. Not sharing creates a disservice to one another. So you look on social media and you see all these beautiful photos, these happy families, everybody's in the kitchen making amazing food, everybody's traveling, at least not so much now, but everybody's having this amazing life, and here you are with these feelings, misunderstood or completely isolated, and feeling hopeless and disconnected. And the reason why I created the Soul Circle is because I've seen this over and over again. So you guys were coming to me for MS or cancer or thyroid depletion, and this was always coming up. And whereas you can find other practitioners that can support you with cleanses and whatnot, or nutritional advices, I felt that this was absolutely needed. Some of you go to the extent of seeking help with a professional, meaning a therapist, a psychiatrist. But this is still not what I'm talking about. If you guys have seek the help of a therapist, please say, hey Tara, good to see you. Yes, Clara, November 1st. But if you have seek the help of a therapist, I'm not saying it doesn't help, but I just wanted to pause for a second to the thought that the relationship is just still unilateral. Here is this luminar. This is the person that the professional that knows everything, and here is you looking for help, which is already a great step because you go out of your comfort zone and understand that you need help. Great. However, the relationship is still unilateral. It's not a dialogue. So the reason why I realized that there was a need of a soul circle, and I call it circle because it's actually a circle of different people coming together and starting to share experiences and willing to do the heavy lifting work of going back and addressing traumas and dramas that may be holding you back. And they may be the cause of some of the mental disorders that you're experiencing right now. But most importantly, the change and the outstanding life changing shifts I see is when people really come together, they create bonds, they start becoming friends, they start getting out of feeling isolated and say, okay, but this woman really feels this way I feel. Oh my God, I thought I was the only one having these issues with my husband, or I have this issue with my children, or I had this issue with my mother. And then we start going back into when all this started, because, and some of you here, I know, have dealt with addictions, and a lot of you guys in the medical meeting group end up feeling either extremely deprived after feeling that deprivation is the only way to stay on the course, on the plan, but then end up binging. And this yo-yo situation is not just bad physically, but it's first and foremost bad mentally. So the yo-yo diet, the being extremely restrictive and then going into binging times and then going back into a cleanse. So your life becomes, cleansing, binging, which is obviously not where health resides. So I'm saying this because I see profound life altering shifts when people really come together and start sharing. First and foremost, because you release it. So there's a lot of crying, obviously, right? Because and I don't even have to provoke you. Like, it just, you open your mouth and you start crying. People that I ask in my one-on-one, when was the last time you cried? And a lot of people say last week, it depends. Or other people say I don't cry, like I don't sweat. Well, that's bad, both. If you don't sweat and you don't cry, it's both bad. However, we sweat through our skin, the toxicity, because the skin is our third kidney, and I feel like we sweat through our eyes, our emotional toxicity. So not crying daily, even, it means that you're holding in, and holding in is gonna do damage somewhere, and then it can show up as cancer. But again, it wasn't the hormones, it wasn't the viruses, because like Kathy just told us, whenever she experienced the trauma, that's when EBV came up in her life, or more prominently, and so panic attack and anxiety. What was EBV doing before? Did she not have EBV before? Of course she did, but there was a trigger element. So with that, I want to empower you that the viruses are not the problem. I want you to be aware of them, of course, and I want you to be proactive in changing your lifestyle and your nutrition so that you do not continue to feed viruses. However, when your immune system works properly, the EBV is going to be taken into a latent state. And often I see wives that tells me, my husband can eat whatever he wants. He doesn't have any symptoms. But here I am, I can't even have a raisin. But why does the husband have any symptoms? Why does the friend or the mother? Because, again, it's not the virus, because all of them have it, I promise you, especially within the family. All of them is so widespread. Anthony talks about it enough for us to know how widespread the EBV and all the herpetic viruses, but especially EBV. We all have EBV. Not all of us may have shingles, but we all have EBV. But again, not everybody's health is wreaked havoc by EBV. And the reason is because EBV needs to be fed. And if EBV is not fed, EBV is going to be serving its purpose of being a latent virus among many others pathogens that we host and harbor inside of us that, believe it or not, strengthen our immune system. Their presence strengthen our immune system and our response to pathogen. That's why on November 1st, in the seminar, we're going to talk about immunization, but we're also going to talk about terrain. We're going to talk about why some people get COVID and end up in, dire situations, and some people don't even have symptoms, or just, get away with 3 days of, mild symptoms, and that's it. We're going to talk about all that. And so hopefully we're going to have empowered, clearer with answers as to whether she should take this flu shot or not. Hi, Tara. Love the Soul Circle. Totally helped me to crack open. And yes, absolutely. And she did it in one of the few groups that actually had a man, because we have men, and I welcome men in more and more soul circles, because God knows if they need it too. I mean, they breathe, so they need it. It's not a gender thing. And I promise you that although some people might have a little bit sometimes of resistance when they feel there's a man in the group, their presence becomes much more valuable, because opens up perspectives that if it was just us women, we may not consider. So again, but unfortunately, still 80%, I would say, of the soul circle people are women. But what I notice is that in Africa, for instance, and I have a lot of African friends, the sense of women coming together around, really in a circle situation, it's still very much alive. We weren't meant to do this alone. And by do this, I mean life. We weren't meant to go through this alone. That's why a lot of depression is happening now due to COVID. This isolation is not good for the human being that is a social animal. So we weren't meant to do this alone, and we weren't meant to go through problems alone. We always say it takes a village to raise a child. God knows I have a toddler, and with the pandemic, not really good. But in general, to be healthy, it takes a village, it takes a circle. In my cooking books, they're coming out now, and I hope you guys go, all of you, and buy them now. There's a few pages about the blue zones, Italy, where I'm from, being one of them. But blue zones, if you ever heard them, is the places where there's a high amount of people living over 100. So there's one in Japan, one in Greece, one in California. So they went and studied them to understand what was happening. Why are these people living so long and fairly healthy? And in Japan, for instance, I forgot the name, it's in the book, but they choose since early age a group of people of 5, and they will become responsible for each other until their death, no matter what. And their code of honor is really, really big in those cultures. So no matter what, they will always be responsible for one another. And I think that is absolutely one of the reasons why the Okinawans live for so long. So being yes, Lauren is saying, I feel that this lifestyle is pretty isolating, at least for me. Not many people are open to new ways of thinking and understanding why I do or don't do things, so I often keep to myself. And Lauren, one of the reason why I wrote the books, first of all, is because of that. Because there cannot be health, no matter how many celery juice you drink, until there is balance. And a balanced life, it's a life where you can still have your date nights, you can still have your Christmas and your holidays, you can have your birthday cake, you can have a social life of people that you feel supported and understood. And again, it doesn't have to be just medical medium people, because then you become like a sect and a cult or a caste where just as people understand what you do. I feel that people ask me, so should I start with a lymphatic cleanse? Yes, of course, I say this all the time. Everybody needs a lymphatic cleanse because we all try to eliminate toxicity, and most of us have impaired elimination pathways. But equally important is a round of Soul Circle. And now, whether you want to do it with me or find others, but I don't know if there are other places like Soul Circle, to be honest, because you can go to a therapist, but people who, especially most of the people in Soul Circle, live the medical medium lifestyle, so they go through the same stress and the same struggles of I feel deprived, I want to have my eggs, whatever that may be. But so you really feel comfortable just because you know where they're coming from. But it's the fact that it's the circle, the mirroring experience that happens among the people that come from all different walks of life, different countries, not often, but sometimes gender. And that mirroring experience making us feel that, hey, wait a minute, so it's not just me. Oh, this is happening to you too. And getting the response and the accountability from other people in your group saying, Lauren, I think that this is happening, and I see this and this and this. Or Cleora, I think that this is what is preventing you from living your life to the fullest. And the profound shift I've seen during Soul Circle when people overcome their emotional turmoil. And again, the person that I mentioned to you that now is loving her life again and thriving, yes, she's on level 2 of Soul Circle, of lymphatic cleanse, but she's coming from Soul Circle. And I'm pretty sure that a lot of heavy lifting is being happening in the Soul Circle. And as I said, life shifting, profound effects I've seen from people that come from, for different reasons, whether it's trauma, whether it's childhood, whether it's postpartum depression, that's why they come to Soul Circle. Or maybe because they go through a cleanse and they realize that they became very emotional. And then as you peel the layer of the onion, then you realize that there's a core that you hit and it's a wall. And usually that's always an emotional wall. So you, like an emotional reset is needed more than any other 369 or, cleanses. You need to address the emotional toxicity that is harbored inside of you. But now that you were able to clean up and then show where the cracks and the holes are. So I think mental health is something that we should discuss more, especially when we realize that it's more widespread than we think. And I'm talking about the symptoms, not again the disease so clinically recognized. I'm talking about experiencing symptoms of emotional disorders, mood disorders. Again, there's a mechanical reason, there's a physiological reason, and there's also an emotional reason. So the two go hand in hand. The two both together change the chemistry of our body. And as of course, from a nutritional perspective, there's so much that can be done. And again, first and foremost is adding fruit to your diet. And I'm not talking about an apple here and there. I'm talking about huge amount of glucose that is a protective biochemical that provides a veil of protection for the brain and our neurological tissue. So as long as we have enough glucose stored in the brain to feed our a certain nervous system, this will help us protect the brain from the corrosive effect of either the adrenaline. Exactly. And Kathy just saying adrenaline surges makes me very sick. Absolutely. Because these hormones are corrosive. And now someone like Kathy that has experienced trauma and now feels that he's living in a PTSD sort of situation will continually have adrenaline surges that are dysfunctional, meaning that her adrenals will fire where they're not supposed to fire. Why? Because she's living constantly, but what if, in that sense. So there's absolutely a physiological and mechanical way to address this. But again, I've seen, so glucose, it's a number one protective biochemical that you need to counter act the effect of the corrosive hormones that we produce during heightened moment of stress, whether we're living in a PTSD environment. That can absolutely create lasting effects. But the other part is the need absolutely to be able to connect and communicate. And one of my biggest fear in this pandemic is the isolation and the disconnection that is creating. And we will see this only after. And then we think that the virus is gone and then that's the end of our problems. I think that is just beginning. And I'm already seeing it because I'm in this business and I have clients and I see what's happening, as I said, especially to the younger generation that don't really understand why they have to be living in this situation with such a seclusion. So the connection is key. So I invite you guys to consider to either create your own soul circle, your own group with your friends or family, or take one with me, see what the potentials are. And then ideally, that was my dream. I wanted to create an app where I could reproduce the soul circle scenario or empower you guys through an app to create your own soul circle with family and friends. And maybe I'll do it, but my husband is under the impression that I'm kind of the needle within the facilitator, and so if there are no facilitators within the other groups, maybe it will not sort the same effect. But I feel that once you take the soul circle, you understand the potential and what can happen to your body and how much further you can take your healing journey. You maybe be able to potentially do this on your own and with your own clan or circle. But anyway, that is fast forward, who knows in the future. The point is, find your circle. Find the 5 people like the Okinawans where you can rely on and you're going to be nothing but honest with them. So if you feel like you want to kill yourself, do it. If you feel that you want to do it, if you feel that you want to kill yourself, talk about it with these people. Know that there's no censorship. Know that there's no judgment. But we need this because, as I said, we were never meant to do this alone. And now, more than ever, especially with the pandemic, we need to reach out. We need to connect, even if it's just through this medium for now, which is the Zoom, the internet. We need to do that. And yes, I am longing for hugs, for real life hugs. And the experience we had at the retreat last year was, priceless. The ability to get together in the first medical medium retreat in California. And I mean, it was life altering. But for now, until we can get back together again, this is enough. Taking a couple of hours a week for your own time and really do the work with people and then do it throughout the week on your own, starting to ask questions, starting to feel the pain. Because again, the other part is this: we try to to self-medicate. And some of you know that that's my position in terms of addiction. I don't believe that alcoholism or any type of addiction are actually diseases in themselves. They're just coping mechanism. And I've seen this enough in my group of friends versus my clients, where even if you are able to get over your thank you, Tara, you're an amazing facilitator, thank you. Even if we're able to look to overcome our alcohol addiction, for instance, or then very often then turns, if we don't address the issue, it turns into another type of addiction. I have a friend specifically who is a recovered alcoholic. He hasn't drunk in a very long time, but he has ice cream every night, and that is a new addiction, which is sugar. It could be sex for some people. It could be gambling for others. So addictions are really a way to cope with underlying issues that have not been addressed. And I promise you that Soul Circle helps you feel that pain, because what we want to do when we are, when we have addiction, we suffer from addiction, is to numb ourselves. Some people are workaholic, and I think I probably fall into that category. And especially when I'm very stressed, and especially when I have so much going on, I just bury myself with work. And in fact, some of you guys tell me, how do you do all this, Barbara? And when I look at it as if I'm not the person, I realize that it's really a lot what I have on my plate. And I can't blame anybody but myself. But sometimes it's my coping mechanism just to bury myself in work. So I have seminars coming up. I have 4 groups every month. I have 2 books, not one. It seems like, of course, I want to help you, of course, all of this. But I think that when I look inside of myself, and I'm going to be really honest, there's some sort of addiction into numbing myself so that I don't feel the pain of other things that are going on. First and foremost, is a pandemic, you guys, because listening to you every day, all day, is also, has an effect on my own, the way I receive things from you guys. And then I need a release, right? I need a release. And so sometimes work or writing books, it was amazing. It was very therapeutic for me. But maybe my daughter is like, Mom, can you spend more time with me? So again, we're all here. Nobody is exempt. Everybody can experience whatever sort level of mental disorders. And what I'm here to really beg for is to get the courage to reach out and want to go through the process, the Soul Circle. The new group starts in November, at the beginning of November, maybe second week of November. But anyway, go on BarbaraManconiSmith.com, check out the guided groups, and look for the Soul Circle, because we talk so much about cleanses and lymphatic and whatnot, yes, but I never ever talk about Soul Circle, and I never had to, because I keep the groups very small to make them intimate. So I can't have 50 people in a group. I can't even have 10 people in a group. So the groups are very small. So I never really had to promote this, but I want this to be in the back of your mind, whether it's this month, next month, in 2 months, next year. Please consider reaching out and join a Soul Circle group. See the profound life-shifting effect that can have on you, on your life, on the so-called mental disorders that you may be experiencing, and see how your life changes, your health changes. Because I had this lady in 2 groups ago where she said to me during the Soul Circle, and she's done all of my other cleanses, but she said, Barbara, I came for other reasons, but now after 45 years, I'm able to cross my legs. I've never done yoga because I felt ashamed that I couldn't do basic poses. And now after doing some heavy lifting with releasing a lot of emotional toxicity, she's now able to, she's really able to do poses. And she found herself on the floor with a grandchild, legs crossed, and she was like, I could not believe this. So do not believe the Soul Circle is there just to address your emotional. I mean, we are one. And in fact, the disconnection lies when we become disconnected and we feel that our body is disconnected from our soul. But once there's alignment, you will see that, the mood is going to change, but also your digestive system changes, your lymphatic pathways open. So it's all interconnected. And Shelly is saying the content is really great so far, because Shelly is in my current Soul Circle. And again, Shelly is being to therapy. And so if you have gone to therapy, I promise you this is different kind of work that we do. Not just because of the content, but because of the structure, right? When we are with other people, when we start sharing, there's nothing that can be reproduced in a therapy session, that I feel are needed. Absolutely. So it's not something that you either do the soul circle or you do that. But I invite you to do that because it's a very different experience than going to a therapist. And you can absolutely see shifts happening weekly, and getting a lot of food for thought into why some things are happening to me, why even reframing things. A lot of you come to me labeled, like I was labeled this, I was labeled an addict, I was labeled a OCD person, um, and then we realize that labels really are really the need of human beings to classify and put things people within uh, boundaries so that we understand them. But it's really, we're so much more than our labels. So freeing yourself from this way of thinking, freeing yourself from thinking that there's something wrong with you, that first of all you're the only one experiencing that, freeing yourself and seeing other people actually overcoming some of the same things you're going through, it's very empowering. And in this time of extreme isolation, I truly hope that you will consider joining the Soul Circle. And again, I have to keep the group small, so I can't have 20 people, and I'm only one for now, so I can do multiple groups a month, and I have all my other work and my other groups. But I want you to guys read about it. I want you guys to maybe even consider doing your own personal soul circle with your family and friends, because it's needed, and it's gonna get you through emotional turmoil. It's going to help you address some of the traumas and dramas. It's going to help you feel more connected. It's going to help you get through this pandemic, you guys, because I mean, one of the things that I miss the most is my social life, to be honest. And we all need it, not just to go out and have, expensive dinners and parties, but just to be able to hug my friends. And some of them are not far in my family. My family, all of it is in Italy. And my mom was supposed to come here for the holidays, and they will not let her come. And it's very painful because she's older, because we don't know if and when she'll be able to come. And being separated from my family, she's not seeing my daughter growing up. It's painful. And so we need each other. We need people. People need people. I will not say this enough. People need people. We can just not hibernate and become our in this isolation. So please reach out. And even if after this live, if you're still watching, anything was triggered inside of you, reach out. If you feel, please reach out to me. Through my private messaging on the Barbara Manconi Smith. I'm always available. If you have questions about the program or any other program, please reach out. And I hope to see you on November 1st for those of you interested in immunization and the flu shot. But if you have never worked with me and you come here now to me and say, what is this woman doing? What is she talking about? I would say right now, given our current situation, get on a soul circle. Of course, the lymphatic cleanse, but get on. If you have to choose between one or the other, done together are actually very beneficial because you release at both levels. But if you have to choose one, then go for the soul circle and see. Let's see what Tara has to say. I was hesitant because of opening up to others. I felt but I felt very safe and comfortable. Plus, I could see myself in the group. Which, Tara, thank you so much for this testimonial, because it's absolutely this, seeing yourself in others and helping others seeing themselves in you. That doesn't happen in a therapist's office. So in a counselor office, in a psychiatrist's office, in fact, they either let you talk and get to it by yourself, but there's no, and also the relationship, as I said, is unilateral. In the circle, we are all sharing, we're all opening up, we're all sharing the human experience. And sometimes we forget that that's what it is. The pain that we feel, whether it's emotional or physical, it's just all part, not just, but it's all part of the human experience. So running away from it, which is our normal reaction, we run away from pain, we run, whether it's physical or emotional. We want the fix, the quick fix, we want the supplements, whether it's the doctor. So what can I take, doctors? Or the practitioner, give me the supplements because I have eczema. So what can I do to get this out? And sometimes eczema gets healed permanently through Soul Circle. And I promise you, I've seen miraculous things happening. So I wanted to bring up the mental health conversation because I want to talk about it more, because I see too many people leaving it as a, keep pushing it behind their backs, keep suppressing it. And I see that when I can help someone through nutritional changes and lifestyle changes, that is always the missing element. We have to crack you open. You have to be willing to go through the pain, because the only way out is in. And so what Tara says, she really cracked me open. And Jody said it's wonderful. The group is a game changer. Thank you so much, Jody. But I mean, you guys are so wonderful. And through being honored to be there facilitating this for you guys, I get to experience another slice of the human experience. And through Jody and Tara and Shelly and all the people that have done this work with me, I find myself in you. I get answers for myself too. So it's it's a bilateral conversation, and I really appreciate each one of you, and also for the time that you've given me today to be here and listen to this, because maybe you listen to this again. But let's talk more about mental and again, I don't talk about mental illnesses, but I talk about mental health. Let's talk more about mental health. Let's drop the labels, and let's just appreciate the entirety of the human experience, and let's address it without fear. And again, as I said, we were not meant to do this alone, and we need each other. We absolutely need each other, and now even more than before. So thank you so much, you guys, for being here, for following me. I will try to post this in the groups so that whoever didn't get the chance, I know some more Europeans wanted to listen to, but it was too late for them. So thank you so much for watching so far. I will post some of the links in the comments here, and reach out to me if you have any questions, or simply if you want to talk because you feel overwhelmed by what's happening or what's happening to you. I promise you, I've heard it before, and you're not alone. So thank you so much, ladies, and ladies who my girls, thank you so much for being here. I will see you soon.